How are you feeling about your chances?
Oh, I feel really, really good. I know the people of Louisiana are excited about this race. There's an energy level, quite frankly, that we didn't have last month. And I think we're going to see a big turnout on Saturday, and certainly the early vote indicates that we will. And more than that, I really believe, based on the feedback I'm getting from people across the state of Louisiana, Republicans, Democrats, Independents alike, that we're poised for a big victory on Saturday, and I'm optimistic about that. And I'm very, very optimistic about the future of our state as well, and the opportunity we have to keep our state moving forward.
And so is this a closer or more intense race than you perhaps anticipated?
No, no, this is about what I expected. You know, every race is a little bit different, but this was always going to play out in this fashion. I'm heartened to know that not a single poll has my opponent winning. In fact, they all have me ahead, and that certainly is consistent with what I'm getting from the feedback from people that I'm talking to across the state of Louisiana. At the end of the day, our state is doing so much better. The $2 billion budget deficit is gone. We've run 3 consecutive surpluses. Even after a $600 million tax cut last year, we ran a surplus. We're investing in education again, teacher pay raise, first in a decade, new investment in higher education for the first time in 10 years. The lowest percentage of people ever uninsured in our state's history right now. And criminal justice reform has been working for us. We're safer based on an FBI crime report for 2018 that just recently came out. So I feel good about what we've been able to do as a state, and the people of Louisiana do as well.
And so your opponent has likened his bid to that of President Trump, another CEO who has taken elected office in recent years. Do you think whatever happens Saturday night will say anything about the national politic?
Yeah, well, first of all, my opponent has no choice but to try to nationalize this election, because his vision for the state of Louisiana is one that would take us back to the failed policies of Bobby Jindal. He knows that's not going to be well received by the voters here, so he's trying to distract and nationalize this election. But the fact of the matter is we have the largest economy in the history of the state right now. We have the most personal income ever measured in the history of the state right now. Unemployment is the lowest in 11 years. We've brought in record economic development projects with investments in job creation over my 4 years. The people of Louisiana know that. This election is going to be decided on Louisiana issues. They're not going to be ultimately distracted by what's happening in Washington. And if there was ever a time to take inspiration from Washington, it is not now. The partisanship that exists there has gripped Washington, D.C. in absolute dysfunction, in contrast to what we've been able to do here, which everything I've done has been bipartisan, and we've moved our state forward. We're in a much, much better position. Yeah, we have challenges, but we're doing so much better today, and I know the people of Louisiana want to continue that forward momentum.
You alluded to the early voting numbers and just the interest there, the record interest for a non-presidential election. Is that a commentary on what's at stake here in Louisiana?
Well, first of all, the consequences of this election are very, very significant. And I think there's an energy level out there that we didn't see last month. That was borne out by the early voting numbers. But it is also true that just about every election cycle that we have, a greater percentage of the people who are going to show up and vote in the election do so by voting early. So it doesn't necessarily predict just an absolute record turnout. But I do believe we're going to have a bigger turnout than we did in the primary, and I think that's a good thing. I think people ought to exercise their right to vote. I think it's an obligation, by the way, but I also think we're obligated to study the issues and know the candidates and pick the candidate who best lines up with our views on those issues. And if the people of Louisiana do that, as I believe they will, I think that bodes well for me, because they know that we're moving forward. They know we're stronger than we were 4 years ago. And quite frankly, they know that my opponent has views that would take us back to the failed policies of Bobby Jindal. He would repeal the Medicaid expansion. He calls it a freeze, but it's a repeal. 300,000 people would lose health insurance. It would explode the budget. He's talking already about cutting our investments in higher education. That would be a disaster for our state. That's what we did for 8 years under Bobby Jindal. We cut higher ed more than any other state in the nation, raised tuition more than any other state in the nation over the same 8 years. That's a recipe for disaster. I don't think the people of Louisiana want to go back there. They want to go forward.
So how would term 2 of an Edwards administration differ from term 1?
Well, first of all, the good news is we have the stability that we need. The deficits are behind us. We've had 3 consecutive surpluses. So we have the opportunity now to continue to govern responsibly, but make necessary investments in critical priorities like education. We're going to get teachers to the Southern average in pay. We're going to make sure we continue to invest in higher education. The #1 new investment in education in my second term will be early childhood, because we have to do more to prepare our young children between age 0 and 3 to start school ready to learn. We already have more coastal restoration and protection projects in progress right now than at any point in our history. We're going to ramp that up even further going forward. And the transportation infrastructure. We're going to continue to be very, very aggressive and creative, and we're going to deliver more of those projects with record investments because we know how critical that is for quality of life, but also for economic development. And clearly, we're going to maintain the progress we've made with the Medicaid expansion. We have the lowest percentage of people uninsured in our state's history right now. And we're saving money because of the Medicaid expansion. We haven't lost a single hospital in the state of Louisiana, in contrast to what's happened all across the South. But most importantly, we have about 460,000 working poor people with health insurance. They have opportunities for primary care, preventative care. Critically important to have a healthier workforce, have a higher quality of life, and for many of those individuals, they actually get a chance to live.
And of course, the decisions made over the past 4 years, done with a Republican-led House and Senate, we're looking now at prospects of supermajorities from the Republican Party. Does that change the dynamic at all?
No, everything has been bipartisan anyway. Every single thing that we've done since I've been governor has been bipartisan. We took a balanced approach to a balanced budget in light of that $2 billion budget deficit. We found cuts, we found savings, but everything that we did was done with a bipartisan approach, and that's going to continue in the second term. And look, we're not Washington, D.C. yet. We're a little too much like them, but we still have people regardless of party. We sit down and we talk, we figure out where we can agree, where we disagree, and how we move beyond the disagreements in order to move our state forward. That has served our state very well over the last 4 years. It will serve our state well over the next 4 years, which is why I'm more optimistic about our future than I have ever been.
And so looking at these polls, we've had, various TV stations, newspapers have had these polls out. What would you say to the undecided voters here?
Well, I say the same thing to them that I say to every voter. Just look at where our state is today. Compare, contrast it to where we were 4 years ago. Compare and contrast my policies and my vision with those of Mr. Rispone, and I think you're going to see that the state of Louisiana is much better off today, and our future is much better off with my reelection than it would be with Mr. Rispone. And so make your decisions based on that. But you always have some percentage of the electorate that is undecided going into an election, and so that's not surprising. I just encourage them to do what I encourage every voter to do: study the issues, study the candidates, cast an informed ballot. And I think that's what they're going to do, and I believe I'll get the lion's share of those undecided voters.
If you're reelected Saturday, whatever the margin, there will be a group of Louisiana voters who voted for your opponent. What would you say to them if you win a second term?
Well, first of all, that's always the case in every election. It's only people like Fidel Castro who won with 100% of the vote. But I'm going to continue to be the governor for everybody, regardless of party, regardless of geography, and we're going to move forward together. That has been my approach over the last 4 years. I believe it has served the state well. Again, everything that I've done that we've been able to accomplish has been bipartisan. That's going to continue, and it's going to serve the state well. And they also need to know that my good working relationship with the president is going to resume as soon as this election is over. This is the political season. He's doing what political parties and political leaders always do. But at the end of the day, there will be a season to govern. It'll start on Monday, and that good working relationship will resume.
Any final thoughts as we make that final stretch?
No, well, it's just that we're going to continue working hard all the way through 8 o'clock on Saturday night. I do encourage the people of Louisiana to take this election seriously. I believe there are tremendous consequences at stake. And I'm asking them to go out and vote number 4, John Bel Edwards, for 4 more years so we can keep moving forward together.
Governor Edwards, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Harrison.